So there's many benefits to Ramadan in terms of your physical health, in terms of your spiritual health, and even mental health now that we're seeing in studies. But if you were to look at the reason why we do Ramadan, it's because it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And so to be a Muslim, one of the things we do is fasting during the month of Ramadan. There's benefits about understanding what people are living like without food and hunger, building discipline, getting closer to God as well. But we do it because we were instructed to by our God. Yeah. So start from the morning. I think this year we'll be waking up at around 3 a.m. I'll be waking up at 3 a.m. because I have a young daughter who will probably wake up with me and then play for 2 hours and not let me go to sleep. But I digress. We'll wake up in the morning. We will eat some sort of breakfast. Usually I like to have some sort of cereal or porridge, and then we will pray the morning prayer called Fajr, and then try and go back to sleep, wake up for work. And during that time, we won't be eating or drinking water. If somebody smokes, they won't be smoking. If somebody is taking medicine, they're allowed to take that medicine. But it's about using your time in a way where it's productive, both whilst you're at work, but also in worshiping God. We'll pray the normal prayers at the set time. So just after sunrise, midday, and then towards sunset, that's when we'll probably gather around the dinner table and open our fast and eat. In the evening, there's one last prayer where we have the normal evening prayer, but there's also an additional prayer during Ramadan called Tarawih, and that is usually an hour long, and we recite the whole Quran during the month. So it's sunnah. Sunnah means something done by our Prophet, and it's sunnah to open it with a date and some water. But me being Indian and a bit greedy, we have dates and water, and then samosas and spring rolls and all the delicacies you can think of. Some people like to open it with fruit. I like to sort of just dig in, and then we have a sort of a main meal as well. And I think culturally it'll change between South Asians, Arabs, and other cultures, but in our culture it's samosas galore. Eid is for Muslims what Christmas is like for Christians, and what Hanukkah is for Jews, I guess. It's a day of celebration, day of spending time with your family, and a day of being with your family and eating good food. So we actually wake up quite early, usually around 6 a.m., go to the morning prayer in the mosque, and then there's an Eid prayer as well. And then after the Eid prayer, we usually go to the graveyard and visit family and friends that we've lost and say a prayer for them. And then the eating starts. So in our culture, it's usually lamb biryani, which we wait 30 days for, and it's tastes even better. And I guess we give presents and money, but I think that's a cultural thing. I don't think that's a religious thing. I do think that's cultural. But Eid is also about giving as well, and giving to the poor and your family and everyone around you. So in Ramadan, what you are, whilst you're fasting, you are in a state where you're more conscious of God. And so as a result, yes, you can't eat or drink, but you should also try and stay away from sinning or doing bad things. And that could be, just being a bit more mindful of the language you use, how you talk to others, things that maybe sometimes we don't think about. We just maybe say something a bit abruptly to someone. Maybe we use a curse word here and there. So we follow the lunar calendar, and as a result, the lunar calendar usually goes back 10 days every year in relation to the solar calendar. And so that's why the date changes every year. Yeah, so anybody who has a medical condition that would stop them from fasting, so people who have diabetes, or they're on medication that they need to survive, kids. So your fasting is only compulsory once you reach the age of puberty, and also people who are pregnant. And so anyone who, if they were to fast would be detrimental to their health, they're exempt from fasting. I think previously, when the days when we were fasting till 9:45 and then wake up at 1:45 and sleep was limited. I think for me, sleep is the hardest bit. What can make it hard is, really early starts, because then you trying to run on 2-3 hours sleep without any caffeine, and that can be quite hard. But I think in terms of Ramadan and what it's about, it's, yes, we're fasting, and yes, we're, not having water or any stimulants, but we are supposed to try and live our life in the way that we would, or whether we were fasting or not really. So yeah, things can make it hard, but we should try and persevere. Yeah, I think it comes down to each individual preference. So I used to work in food, and so I'm very used to people eating around me, but I know some people would really find it hard, and to watch somebody eat a nice chicken burger whilst they're dreaming about one, that might be difficult for some people. So I would recommend reaching out to your colleagues who are practicing Ramadan and asking them what can they do to make it easier for them, and yeah, absolutely. So I guess I was really blessed that when I joined CSG, they allowed me to work from home when the days were really long, and that allowed me to actually get a little bit more sleep in, so I could function throughout the day without the need for stimulants, and that was something I'm really grateful for. Other things is I'm given the ability to pray and practice Ramadan, I guess to its fullest whilst I'm working. I think also productivity for the first week might drop slightly, and usually then it will pick up. But I think as a manager, as a business, just be a bit easy for the first few days, and then I'm sure they'll bounce back. Yeah, absolutely. I think CSGs are great in terms of Ramadan because of 3 reasons really, well, 3 main reasons. One is, in terms of actually doing our prayers in a way where, I'm not, rushing around trying to find somewhere to do it. I've got a set place to do it, which makes life a lot easy. Also given the flexibility to, work from home if I need to make life easier. And then lastly, just people being mindful that, I am a bit caffeine deprived, and I'm water deprived, and carbohydrate deprived, and so they usually give me a few moments in the morning to get myself together, and just understanding that I'm not the same Taahir as I would be with caffeine.